What is going to help you to make your business happy for you?
Welcome to the Fitness Marketing Agency podcast. This week we're joined by the team at the Fitness Business Development Academy, Nikki Segal, James Bramwell and Maxine Hayes.
A lot of people will be able to look at their relationship with money and it'll either be similar to their parents or an overcorrection of their mistakes.
Running a business without knowing how finance works is like playing football without the football. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't work. Business is a team sport. You cannot win this game on your own.
At every single step of the journey, you're learning and you're developing and you're changing. And you have to change as your business grows, because what serves you at point X will not serve you at point Y.
We hope you enjoy the episode. This episode is brought to you by the Fitness Business Development Academy. Are you running your fitness business, or is your fitness business running you? Are you frustrated that with all the effort you're making within your business every single day, at the end of the month, you're still not making as much profit than you'd like to? If so, the FBDA are the guys for you. These are some of the best business coaches within the fitness industry and have personally helped many of our clients here at Fitness Marketing Agency. If you want to find out how you can go from frustrated and stuck to clear and have clarity and more profit in your fitness business, these are the guys for you. If you want to find out more and book a free strategy call,
all you need to do is go to www.thefbda.com.
So first of all three of you all work with a number of gym owners, and what you do at the FBDA is essentially help them become more profitable, help them with the foundations of their business and set them up for success. Now, you provide them with everything they need to go on and be successful gym owners, and you have a number of hyper successful gym owners that you guys work with. And throughout your time and experience working with gym owners, I'd love to know what you see as the traits of those that just take what you give them in terms of coaching and knowledge, and they go ahead and run with it and they're super successful, versus some people who may struggle initially, or what are the differences between those traits, between those that are kind of hyper successful, take on the coaching that you give, versus those that may have a little bit more struggle? I'll start with you, Nikki.
Yeah, great question. I think you are working with human beings, right? So I don't think anyone comes in to coaching having it all figured out. And that's kind of one of the reasons they come into coaching. They realize that some parts of the business are working right, some parts aren't. Others come their business and life is a total mess and they got to start from scratch. Others think they're doing good, but they're just not feeling fulfilled, or they've climbed the wrong ladder of success, which happens a lot. So you have to refocus their intentions. And I think that's where it really starts, is having someone question them, actually, what is it you want? Actually question them, what are your intentions for the next 5-10 years of your life? Not what got you to this point, but where is it you actually want to go? And I think people get a little bit lost in the whole game of life and business by looking at what other people are doing and start to think, okay, that's what I need to do. But it doesn't lead to ultimate success, right? The people that we see who are, like you said, are hyper successful, they kind of know what they want. This is the number one thing. You have to have the right intentions. What do I want for me and my business and my family? What's going to work in terms of money, time, and purpose? And they're the three things that we start our coaching process. It's tell me how much money you need the business to pay you every single month and what you actually need it for. What do you want to do with your time? How much do you want to spend in your business, working on your business, and then away from your business? And then where's your zone of genius? Because operating a business contains a lot of stuff, right? You can't be good at everything and you're not going to like everything. So we're look, pick what you actually want to do. And then we can look to outsource the other side. I said this on a number of podcasts, but Ben loves marketing, right? I don't like marketing, right? So I won't do that bit. He would. I like coaching. He wouldn't. So nothing's right, nothing's wrong. It's just what's right for that specific person, right? So once we have okay, their game plan, their own individual game plan, their intentions, I think that's the start of a successful coaching journey that helps people become hyper successful, right?
Yeah. So the first step, and it almost sounds simple saying it out loud, but so the first step of success, if you are a gym owner and you want to be hyper successful, is actually knowing what your specific definition of success is.
100%.
So would you say that there's a lot of gym owners or business owners out there that they're all chasing something, but it's actually not something that they actually want? They just do it because they think it's what they need.
And this is where people get lost. And you almost have to get lost at the start of your journey, I think, because no one really knows what they want until they're a little bit lost and think, actually, that's not the right place for me. So you do need that, and that's fine. I mean, we all had the same thing, right? Like when we grew our businesses, we're just like modeling what we think needs to be done. But when you actually achieve a little bit of success, then you start to realize actually what you read is not always true. Theory is theory, practical is practical, right? You start to see things, you start to see the world different when you're seeing it from a different viewpoint. And so, in answer to your question, I think, yes, you have to get a bit lost first, but then you can truly find out what is it you want, and then you can start the journey of creating that. And this will change in different stages of your life, right? So that's why I tend to call it chapters rather than the end goal, right? So it's like, look, the next 3, 5, 10 years of your life, what does it need to look like? And then that will change, right? If you have kids, it changes, right? If you have a different set of circumstances, it changes. Like even for me, I never thought I would not be a personal trainer. I never thought I wouldn't have a personal training studio. But things changed, right? Things changed, and I moved on.
And so, Maxine, before becoming an FBDA coach, you were coached by Nikki specifically. And was that the first step that you went through where it was like, because the business was, doing, chasing revenue, and you're doing all those things that you think you're supposed to be doing as a gym owner, looking outside. And then was that the first step that you had? It was like, what do I actually want from this business? How do I want the business to serve me?
I was the perfect example of what Nikki was talking about. I came straight into the business coaching arena when I came into the industry, and I was looking at all of these amazing successful businesses, and it was like, oh, I need to have a £1 million business. I need to drive this car. And it was, there was status, and I suppose some ego, and I found myself really, really lost because you can actually achieve all of those things. And like Nikki said, it doesn't look it's not the same on the inside as what you can present on the outside. And what I had to do, which I think is probably the key with a lot of people that get success, is that I was continuously comfortable doing the things that I was good at. So I was good at sales and I was good at marketing. So I could just keep selling to cover up a problem. The bit that I was really fearful of, and that's the thing, it's fear. Wherever the business owner has fear, that tends to be the thing that they're going to neglect in the business. And that will probably be the sort of the Achilles heel of the business. Now, mine was numbers. It was managing my numbers, looking at my figures. I didn't want to. I didn't have confidence in my ability. I thought it was boring, all of these reasons. And so I'd say the first 2 months of our coaching relationship was Nikki trying to make me do the numbers. But once I started to look at them and break that down, demystify money and not be scared of it, that's what really changed my business.
And so do you think that in that scenario, the ego can kind of be detrimental to one's welfare in terms of the fact that outside, from the outside, it's like, look at this business, look how in this gym owner community, you're like, my business is doing this is the carb, this is this, everything's good. And you want to maintain that perspective, but actually inside there's things that aren't necessarily going right, but to focus on those would expose a vulnerability, and you'd rather stay in this place where you're perceived to look or feel or have your own perception of how the business is doing. So rather than address the problem because it's scary, you just want to stay in this kind of area where where really the business is based on the perception of how it looks.
Yes, it's the ego. It's incredible that there are people that I think have all coached that have felt the need to put numbers down wrong on their spreadsheets and things, because
to actually say this is how I'm doing is actually not the case.
It's so similar to a weight loss client.
Yeah.
When you're looking at them, maybe they're MyFitnessPal, and it's like, this isn't adding up.
That's
but
such
they
a good
don't
point.
want to write down. They don't want to see in front of them. And I just think James's story from being in the church is such a good example of this as well, because it took all ego out of it, and it was about what was really, really important. And on the outside, some might have looked at James's business and thought that, okay, so what, you didn't have the massive studio or a sauna or whatever the facilities were, but he had the sexiest business that I've ever heard of. So.
Yeah. So someone could look at me like, oh, he's just training people from a church, right? And then you look at another shiny gym, but actually one business is far more successful than the other, but people would perceive 100%. That, the shiny business is the one that's super successful, when actually your business from that point was super profitable and actually serving you and also creating impact within the local community.
This is it, right? So I think, as Max and Nikki were saying, right, I think the first things first is that you have to coach the person rather than the business, right? and ultimately the person will often reflect the business. And what all of us do at some point is just like when you're training, right? We focus on the mirror muscles and don't want to focus on our posterior. We don't want to focus on doing our abs or doing our hamstrings, doing our calves, right? Because you can't see them, right? Exactly the same in your business. You will focus on all the things that people can see because it looks good and makes you feel good, rather than looking at things that you don't want to see, but they really matter, right? And it's exactly the same in how we build our businesses, right? So when we start that coaching relationship, the people that can often struggle are the people that want to avoid the pain. They want to avoid the weaknesses. And they will tell you all the good things, right? So you'll be like, what are the wins for your business? And they'll give you all the good stuff. And then what are all the challenges? And it's a little bit sparse. They can't really work out the challenges because they don't really actually know what is happening inside their business. And one of the things that we do at the start of that journey is we say to them, look, as Nikki said, we want to find out what is going to help you to make your business happy for you. Not for anybody else, not for the gram, not for what people say, what's going to make your business happy for you. And one of the things we help our coaching clients to understand is that all of your decisions need to be data-driven, right? So once you take away the fluff and once you take away all the things that look nice, what does the data say? What do your numbers say, right? And when you do that, then your business looks and feels a little bit different.
It kind of sounds like, and this is what I was trying to articulate earlier, but I think I failed to do so, is that if your self-worth or fulfillment is based off what other people think of your business, that's going to be detrimental to 100%. Your business.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we were talking about this, weren't we? There's a really good bit of theory called money scripts, and there is one around like status, and that literally is that they believe that their self-worth is reflected by their net worth. Which is quite deep, actually, if you think about it. And because you walk around with that, you can't be vulnerable. But it takes being vulnerable to actually improve the problem. So,
circling back around to the question that you asked at the start was like, what makes hyper successful people? Is that right? Is like owning who you are. I said that, and that's hard, right? That's like, especially in our industry, which is a little bit ego-driven. Don't get me wrong. So it's like. So as James was saying, in the coaching process, we try to get them to first see who they are and who they want to be. That's not always easy. That is not always easy, right? And it was a bit like what Maxine said about her numbers. She didn't want to do it. She didn't think she could do it, but actually she could. It was just a skill. And as she did, obviously it totally transformed her business, right? And I said also, like, we're dealing with human beings, as what James said. It was like, look, we're not coaching the business, we're coaching the business owner. People have self-protection mechanisms in place, like they want to protect their ego and they don't want to show their vulnerabilities, but they, as you were saying, Charlie, they need to do that, right? And I think like with the style of coaching we offer is like we give them the environment to like be open, to be a little bit vulnerable, because we were definitely, and then that unlocks like, right, now I can start moving forward to where I actually want to go without having any sense of shame.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to, as you mentioned, Maxine, like coaching a fitness client. So you've got one example of where they might fill in their kind of tracking kind of data incorrectly because they want to look like they've done something when actually it's not representative. But then also in terms of this coaching element, you can tell someone what to lift and how to lift and, you know, the actual prescription of movements and that, but it's actually getting them to understand what they want and actually unlocking that sort of mindset shift into actually getting them to do the thing. So is that the big barrier first of all? Like, before we say, right, you need to do this, you need to track this, you need to do this, there's this level of mindset that needs to be unlocked within before.
Authenticity.
Yeah, 100%.
Honesty.
Understanding what the why is for you, not for anybody else, not for what anybody else says. What is the why for you and your family and your mission? And then once you have that, then the game changes because you've got clarity.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. And so I'm just trying to recap. So with that said, if I'm a gym owner listening to this right now, and maybe I'm in a place where one element of the business is good, but I'm neglecting another, or maybe this is related to me where maybe there's a bit of ego involved. And what's the first step I should look to take to be able to try and break that barrier? If I'm someone listening right now, I want to point towards Maxine first because Maxine, we've got Maxine for about another 20 minutes, so I'm probably going to point more of the questions towards Maxine, and then I'm going to flip to James and Nikki there as well. But yeah, what do you say that first step is if I'm listening to this right now and maybe I can relate to what we've just been talking about? What's that first step I need to take to maybe unlock that barrier, essentially?
You definitely got to be open to wanting to unlock it. you're probably going to need to get rid of some things that you've already learned, especially if you've been in maybe a situation where you've been provided some kind of like blueprint for success. That is exactly what a blueprint could be, saying to someone, this is what you want your gym to look like. It needs to look like this. This is what your life should look like. You want to do this, then you want to do this, and then you want to do that. And so there's like a learned behaviour in there. And actually all of that could be dropped. It's like you said, why did you start the business? What do you want your life to look like? What were the reasons behind all of those things? Are you heading towards that now? No, I am not. Okay, cool. Well, let's just pull it all back and let's start to reflect. It's exactly the same as if you wanted to lose weight. You've got to stop and acknowledge that there's a problem and acknowledge why the problem is there. All the problems that come out in the business are to do with the business owner.
And let's talk about that blueprint that you mentioned. Like, all of you mentioned things that I really want to dive into, so I've got to take mental note. But this blueprint, so blueprints can be incredibly useful for, you know, understand how something is made, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right blueprint for certain people, right? It's just a process of how something can be made. But if that thing isn't correct for you, then you're building the wrong thing, right? So you spoke about this a little bit before we recorded, Nikki, is that like the way you work with clients, it's not a blueprint in terms of like the model needs to be this many people to one, you need to have your pricing at this. It's more of a custom plan rather than a blueprint.
Yeah, so we have a methodology called our 5 skill rings, right? And we talk about how to get customers and create clients, which we work heavily with you guys with staff development, financial KPIs, your service delivery and leadership and management. And then in the core, we have like money, time, and purpose. Like, what is it you actually want? All of these things cross over. And while there are some basic frameworks that people need to follow, I'm not a massive believer in blueprints, right? Because there's a huge part of being a successful business owner or successful in life is you being part in the creation process. You know, so we feel like clients, they have to be willing and able to create their own journey. And again, going back to that first question, like the more we give power to them, the more successful they get. Do you know what I mean? And that's our goal as coaches, not to say like we are the almighty, do what we say. Like, it's like, look, we are here to empower you to create your dream and your journey. And then we're going to coach and guide you and hold your hand when we need to, give you a kick up the backside when we need to, like give you some education when we need to. But we always find that like their brain starts to work. Their brain starts to work and they start to understand it, and then they start to create belief. And once they get that belief, then things start to happen, right? We can't give them that. We can only help them find it themselves.
Maxine, you mentioned something earlier that I just want to go back to. You mentioned when you first started working with Nikki, it was money disillusion. What was it you referenced? Like, you learned about money, money demystification or something like that. What is that?
I suppose that for a lot of people, what we have probably seen is that they may have told themselves that they're not very good with money. If you were, like, a really common one is if you just weren't very good at maths at school. Yeah. So it's just like I don't do money. Obviously, it doesn't help that schools don't really teach us about things like taxes and stuff. So there is a massive gap in knowledge. So, I mean, the demystification of money is normally around, you'll have your beliefs around it. And a lot of the time, if you feel that you are fearful of it or you're not very good at it, you will just ignore it, which means you won't understand it. And actually, one of the best things that I did was to educate myself more about money, about investment, about like all kinds of things. I just didn't know anything about it. I was totally ignorant to money because I'd never had it. I never believed that I would have it. And I thought I was bad at managing it.
And so does that create a belief of when you did get some money that you were fearful of losing it, which had a scarcity mindset? Or
I mean, we see it play out in so many different ways. I think for me, yeah, I mean, I was probably more money avoidant, never believed that I would have money. So I was very good at making sure I didn't have it by overspending it and by not looking at the numbers, neglecting numbers. So, I'll just ignore it. It'll be fine. And actually what inevitably happened was I ended up with no money. So you have to start being more vigilant with your money.
Do you see a lot of gym owners have a similar relationship with money where they're fearful around it? And is that a big focus when you work with a client, like changing their understanding of money and how it works. And someone might be listening to this and thinking like, oh, I know what money is like, but it's actually how you view and leverage money to work for you versus,
it's huge. It's absolutely massive, it's more the behavior around money, I guess. It's like what Maxine was saying. It's like, it's not taught at school, okay? And you leave university with a load of debt and you literally start in that position, most people. So you're always playing catch up, and then as you start making money, taxes come in, and it's just a never ending cycle, right? It is a hamster wheel that most people go on. Like what we've escaped that, and we've tried to teach that same thing to people. You have your logic, like do this, but really it's about the behavior. And that's the thing we try to coach mostly about, like how to make money, how to keep it, and like how to change the way you think about it.
Yeah,
makes a difference. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a big part of the process when a gym owner comes in, is actually like managing their relationship with money beforehand. Yeah.
It's often going to be. It's like quite fresh in our minds because we just delivered a mastermind all around money on Friday. But a lot of people will be able to look at their relationship with money and it'll either be similar to their parents or an overcorrection of their mistakes. And that's normally where it sort of fundamentally starts to build. It's think about like, what did your parents say to you about money? What was your experience? What did you see happen? That's going to start to form your relationship with money, what you believe. Are you scared of, fear of scarcity is probably going to mean you're going to hold on to too much money. You might be fearful of growth and investment and spending it, which can hold the business back. We can have people that are caught up in status, so they're spending money that they don't have to appear a certain way, which inevitably leaves them with no money. There's so many different behaviours, but the one that probably shows the most is the avoidant. And that's because people that tend to be a bit more money avoidant go into helping professions. So they never went into the profession because they thought, I'm going to earn a crap load of money being a PT. They went, I want to help people. If you're really, really money focused, you may be more likely to go into a profession like finance, for example, that might even on the tin, it kind of gives you potentially more earning capacity.
That's such a good point. And something I was going to say even before you mentioned that is that some people might be listening to this and they might hear us repeatedly say the word money and might feel a bit uncomfortable because they're thinking, I didn't get into this industry to make money. I got into this industry to help people, to create impact. And then you said that and it completely backed that up, right? Like if you get into a service-based industry, your initial motivator is to help and serve others, and money is it comes after that. But why should, being a gym owner or fitness business owner, why should you actually change? Like if you feel a bit, as we're speaking about money, if you're feeling a bit icky right now listening to this podcast.
What I'd say, right, I think as business owners, we need to understand actually the goal that we have within our business, right? And I think there's a massive misunderstanding about what your business actually allows you to do. Your business allows you got to think of your business as an asset. And that's the first thing. It's an asset that can help you and help the lives of those around you. And when you see it like that and you understand the power of your business, your complete mentality and approach towards your business, it changes, right? So with a lot of people, when we first get them going, we start them on our fitness business optics. So we say, let's work out the numbers, right? And a lot of people, they have no idea how much money they're left with at the end of the month. They have no idea about their profits. And we talk about profits heavily at the start of the journey. Why? Because actually, your business is there for initially the primary function of serving the business owner. And you serve the business owner by how much profit you make and your time and your purpose, right? But the money's important. Okay, the money's important. And we almost need to give people permission to say, money's important and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to make money important. So here's the thing. In the UK, in Great Britain, we kind of don't really speak about money. It's one of those things that you don't really say. You don't say how much you earn. You don't really talk about it. It's just this unspoken thing in the house that happens. You just happen to make money, but no one really speaks about it, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that completely.
And then the same thing happens when you get into business. You're serving people, you're helping people, but you don't really speak about money. You kind of feel funny when it's like, hey, Charlie, can you pay me now? And you feel a bit weird. You're like, why? I don't feel like I can even ask for the money, the service that you've been receiving. So we need to help people to say, actually, money's okay. And that's what your business is there to do.
That's so true. So I have a friend who's a financial advisor, and I'll be very open and talk about money with him, and it's just a normal conversation. I have another friend, and you can see him physically get uncomfortable when it comes to talking about finances. But it all stems back to what you said, Maxine, in terms about that belief system that's embedded early on. Because one person's feeling all rigid, and one person's relaxed because of the environment that they've been in that creates these beliefs, and then from those beliefs creates action. So you've got two completely different people, but it's all based on the environment and the belief system.
That's key is your environment. That's a key thing. Is and again, like, can we help change people's environment? Because typically at home or in their life, or the people that they're going to be like money avoidant or not talk about it, as James was saying, right? And the point James made there was huge, right? It's like giving them permission to be okay about making money. You know what I mean? It's so important. Like, it's fine. And as James was saying, is you can actually help more people if the business makes more money, right? And I have this joke. It's like running a business without knowing how finance works is like playing football without the football. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't work. You can only go so far before like it will break. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so you have to learn. If you are going to go into business, then like finance and money is something that you're going to need to learn. Whether you want to spend it on Ferraris or give it away charity does not matter, right? But like, you're going to have to pay people. You have to pay for stuff. You have to manage it. And it's just part of a skill that you have to learn as a business owner. But be cool with it. It's good. It's good. And it carries over to your personal life. You will be able to help much more people if you master this skill of finance.
And I think as well is that when you're a gym owner, you know, you're an entrepreneur, most of the people around you in your life aren't entrepreneurial. Yeah. So most people will hold that beliefs that you mentioned, James, in terms of they don't like speaking about it. So you're this one person surrounded by people who don't have a belief, they don't want to speak about money, that probably have scarcity around money. So then if you actually try and change your behavior, it's going to be very hard to do that when you're in an environment of people that aren't on your, I say level, and not in an egotistical way, but like when you're running a business, when you're an entrepreneur, you live in a different world, and you have to think differently to succeed, because you can't think like an employee or a 9-to-5. And there's nothing wrong with being a 9-to-5 person, but it's a different way of life and a different way of thinking. It comes back to
those environment again, right? We can only talk about business to business people, like literally, like no one will get it. No one will understand like why we get up at 5, go to bed at 9, do work, always our brains engaged. Some of the amounts of money like that we talk about, or what we talk, no one will get it. No one, right? Only another business owner will get it. So it's important to have part of your environment just your business family, right? And then the other part of your environment, your life. But like when they cross over, it just doesn't work.
And I think with this conversation, in terms of like the traits of a high-performing individual, I think if we were to summarize this conversation, you've got, well, first of all, you need to change your belief set and figure out what you want. But how do you do that? And then the action would be, well, what does your environment look like? Because exactly. Because like, and that's probably the takeaway from this whole conversation is, first of all, you need to change your beliefs, but it's gonna be very hard to change your beliefs if you're in an environment where people don't think like the way you want to think. So you need to change your environment.
So what I'd say is that I think with the environment, it's important to get inspired. It's important to get inspired. So when I remember when I first started in the industry, and going back to the environments, your start in the industry can be quite lonely, because you're on this road where you're changing your mindset and you're trying to think a little bit differently, and you start to realize that people around you don't quite think the same. So you start to feel almost alienated, because you're like, why don't you think like that? Or why do you think like that? Right? So you're trying to find people that you can relate to. And that's where the community comes into it. But then after that, it's about changing your understanding about what's achievable and what can be done. And the biggest thing that happened for me, actually, when I first started coaching with Nicky, years ago now, way too long ago, was that he helped my mind to change to actually what can be achieved, right? And once you actually remove the parameters and you start to realize that your ceiling is not here, but now it's here and beyond, then the whole world opens up to you. And then you start to see your business as this thing, this organism, which really has no end. The only limiting part is you. That's the only limiting part of your business, right? And I think that mentality and mindset of being around other people where you can borrow some of their self-belief and even see what's possible, that's a massive game changer. So going back to those traits, I think one of the big traits actually is about believing that your dreams can come true.
Yeah,
Right.
And a whole element of like that, the environment that you're in, I think it's so important in terms of like, I'm just thinking like an actionable step for someone listening to this to be able to take is you guys held an event recently. You do like, is it 2 masterminds a year?
2 masterminds a year.
Yeah, and you know, FMA, we host masterminds and these in-person events, and a lot of gym owners will be like, I can't spend the day out of my business because I'm so busy in my business. But by doing that, you're trapping yourself within this environment that is enabling you to not change your belief system. So, and it's mad to think that, let's say someone goes to 2 events a year, like that's only 2 days of the business that you're putting yourself in an environment with other people that are similar to you. So it's so important to go to events like the ones you guys have, or go to industry events, or just make sure you've got a circle of people that all have the same values as yourself.
I'd say this, like it's like for fitness business owners, it's exactly like how their weight loss fitness clients come to them. You know, to change your behaviors, you have to do something different. It is uncomfortable sometimes for them to get out of their business and start to see like what everyone else is doing, right? But it's exactly like what your fitness clients are doing. You know, how you change their behaviors around food and around exercise is exactly what you need to do as a business owner. It's the same path. And you actually, and I found this as well, I became a better fitness coach or personal trainer by going on my own journey, trying become a better business owner, because I was super vulnerable, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning. I was at these events like totally like mind blowing. I thought, wow, this is big. Like, is this really for me? But as I kept doing it, I got more confident. As again, what James was saying, everything that worked, confidence, my beliefs start to get better, and then it just gets like this a ball of momentum keeps going, right? So I think it's important to see yourself almost like as one of your fitness clients, you know, and take that journey.
Now, Maxine has to go very, very soon, but I had a bunch of questions I wanted to ask you, but I think when you've got 4 people, everything's bouncing around and time is flying super fast. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think it's going to be really, really valuable, which is a slight change of subject, is that you are probably one of the very few people within this coach-led independent space that is in the position where you literally don't have to go into the business for it to be able to run. But for that to have happened, the team had to be in place. And I know that like your team retention in terms of you've got some solid core team members that have been there for years and are like, you know, are very bought into the business, and you managed to build a really, really solid team. And so many people in this space, they'll go, I can't find the right staff. They come in, they start and they just rotate staff like a lot. Whereas you've been able to on the majority part get people in and just keep them there, because, and I want to know what it is that you have done to be able to have those people in those positions, and what maybe advice you could pass on to people listening to this.
Okay. Get them bought into the business.
Yeah.
One of the first things we would do when we're coaching with FBDA clients is the life cost analyzer at the very beginning. And it's very uncomfortable for gym owners. We've already spoken about it.
The life cost analyzer.
Life cost analyzer is being able to look in the future and see how much money you want to be able to take out of your business to be able to afford the life that you want, whether that's to be able to fund time out, purpose, or just finance like the money, the physical money you want to take out of it. And people can be really limiting with that. But once the business owner has done that and established what the business needs to do for them, ideally, you need to get everybody else to do something quite similar. Because I know out of all of my team, and I have always known what their next goal is in their life. I've seen them through marriages, babies, buying houses, or like sort of maybe more career development. But if I continually ask them, what can my business give to you to make your life what you want it to be, then in theory, you're more likely to keep people. So
yeah, that's golden for anyone that just listens to that right there. Because what, you know, the whole thing we started with is like, what do you want from the business? What do you want? And then when I've asked you about the staff member, it's like, well, it's that methodology, but for those staff members, like, what do they want from their life, and can my business facilitate it?
Exactly, it's got to be within reason. Right?
But you've managed to do that for a number of people, which is why you're in the position there. And not every business is going to be able to facilitate everyone's wants, which is fine. But but if you have that in mind at the start, then you're going to have a much better chance to actually get them to buy in, rather than this person is here to do this. It's a transactional relationship and that's it. Or, you know, if you have someone that's self-employed, that's probably the most detached version of what you've just said. And then you can have someone that's employed, but you could also not be thinking, what do they want from the business? And then it's still kind of transactional at that point, right? But then when you're saying, what do they want? And in terms of like, they want a staff member that wants to get married and have kids and buy a house. Like, can you help them with that pathway? That's when you buy into them and then they buy into you.
They're bought in. So, I mean, I can think of one member of staff in particular who's been with me for 9 years, and his motivation when he first started to work for me was money. So he wanted to earn a good wage. And so we factored that into the growth goals of the business, and he could see that when the business reached X point, he would also get his pay rise. That worked because he got his mortgage, but then his partner fell pregnant. So then his purpose was probably more about buying back a bit of time. Didn't really want to be working all the evenings and all the 6 a.m s. So we had a conversation on, okay, well, then we would probably need to get another member of staff in to take a few hours away from you. So the business would need to be at this point. He's bought in and it's changed. He's probably more purpose orientated at the moment. He wants to learn more about specialist subjects. So is the business going to fund him to put him through some kind of course? Probably, yeah. So as long as we're continually having those conversations, because it's going to change for your staff over a period of 10 years as much as it's going to change for the business owner. So yeah, I mean, I like to hold on to people. I don't like to lose them. And there are other models with staff where, not everybody's goal is to hold on to people for that long. But especially with Connor, he is running my business for me, and he has worked with me now for 11 years. And the only way I would have been able to do that is to make sure that I am aligning everything with what he wants from his life and his business goals.
And do you think when you are getting that first staff member, whether it's like first coach or someone, that should be the mentality you have in terms of like, can I get this person to buy into the journey alongside with me? And do you think also as a business owner, you may struggle with that because you're like, this is my business. Like at an early stage, like how do I get this person to buy in and act like it's their business when it's my? Is there any of that at all? Or?
Again, it really, really depends, because I've seen that there are gym owners that want to have people that come in, they want to pay them low and they don't really mind if there's a churn of them. Yeah. But as I said, for me, I'm working with clients that have been with me for 10, 11 years. I see what happens when a staff member leaves. They don't like it. So if I can keep my clients and keep my staff for as long as possible, that really suits me. So I've got to try and find people.
Losing a staff member is the worst, right?
That is when you see the most amount of clients leave.
It makes sense because like if you've got a staff member that's been there for 9 years, for 11 years, then the client and we're in a relationship business. Right. So if you've got people that are there for a long time and they have relationships with these people, whereas
look after your staff.
Whereas if you've got someone that's there for 6 months and then they go and then it's another relationship and then maybe they don't gel with them. Like every time you get a new staff member and you expose them to your client base, you're kind of making a bit of a calculated risk in a way because you don't know if that staff member is going to gel with those clients initially.
Yeah, if they're authentically bought into your business or if they've got their own agenda. So again, if you treat them really well, they are more likely to be aligned and want to work for you and with you. Yeah. If they're appreciated, if they feel that they are seen, the reason why people are not bought into businesses is normally because they don't feel like they're being acknowledged or seen properly or appreciated. So
no, that's awesome. Now, have you got to dash? Amazing, right?
Dash.
So Maxine's going to leave. We're going to quickly cut and then come back immediately. And then it'll just be me, Nikki, and James, and we'll be continuing with the podcast.
We're going to wrap up this section of the podcast. Next week, we'll move into part 2, where we'll continue to dive in to what makes a hyper successful gym owner and how to make more profit from your business. We'll see you next week.